That was amazing. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, we just get into the debate. We have a long night with the three barristers and with the ANSC representative. Um, Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to this important discussion. Barrister Ghana, I don't know if you're still there. I can't find you. Okay, Barrister Ghana, maybe you want to bring. Okay, you're welcome. Thank you all for being patiently waiting. Um, Barrister Tim Besia, Commander Elvis. It's going to be a long night. We understand that today we have the emergency draft as called by the federal government, but so much we just followed global news there by Tabitha Ako. So much is happening in the world. We just need to begin right now. Good evening and welcome, Barrister Fru, Barrister Tim, Barrister Ghana, and Commander Elvis.
Good
Thank you,
evening,
Paddy.
and it's an honor.
Yeah, good evening, Greg.
Amazing.
Thank you, Paddy.
I think I'll just begin with you, Barrister Ghana, for a while you've not been here. And I remember the last time we had a debate with the other barristers. It was about the situation, the Hamas, Gaza, Israeli, Palestine conflict, or whatever is happening in the Middle East. There seemed to be some kind of a peace deal. Though few days, just a day, about 24 hours later on, Hamas was seen beheading on camera. I don't know how sustainable is this agreement that was signed in Egypt by Trump a few days ago. And we're going to look at all of that and compare with the current Ambazonia of now, the way the world is approaching conflicts, and even the post-independence front and violence into Cameroon. So we have so much to talk about that gives us enough reason as to why we need the emergency draft to get ourselves ready for the days ahead that are pregnant. So talk to us, Barrister Ghana. You're welcome.
Uh, Greetings again, and thanks to all who are here, Barrister Funso, Barrister Mbesea, and Commander Elvis. It's an honor to be here with you guys. Yes, I have been away for quite a while, attending to some family emergencies, but it's always an honor to be here. You mentioned the issue of the Gaza peace plan that just took place, and what has transpired since October 7, 2024, when I don't know if it was 2024 2023, when uh, uh, no, 2024, when Hamas attacked Israel. And again, it's an irony that Kamala Harris was not that much of a foreign policy candidate. Kamala Harris was not that much of a security or pro-security candidate. But this was Hamas, again, very stupid decision, choosing to go attack Israel at the eve of US presidential elections, bringing Lebanon into a fight, creating a crisis in the Middle East, and making the security issue eminent in the US presidential elections. So they, Hamas, helped the election of Donald Trump. And what did Donald Trump do? Give Israel a free hand to do whatever it wanted to do in terms of just bombing the crap out of Gaza. And we now have this 20-point agreement. And if you read the agreement and things that it specifies, and a lot of people say that this agreement was actually an Israeli agreement that they slipped under the table to the United States, and the United States presented it as a 20-point agreement. I think there's some truth to that. Hamas dug its own grave. And if you look at what has happened, the killing of Nasrallah in Lebanon, Iran being pushed back to its heels, the Houthis in Yemen, so many, over 70,000 Palestinians have died. And you talked about the beheadings that are happening in Gaza. And those beheadings point to a movement, they point to a people that does not want to go through a reformation. When Hamas won legislative elections in 2005, 2006, The PLO, the Palestinian Authority, was the one controlling Gaza. Hamas won those elections, overthrew the Palestinian Authority, executive authority there in Gaza, beheaded them just like they are beheading suspects now in Gaza. What does this all point to? With respect to the 20-point agreement, that 20-point agreement is not going to hold. It's not going to hold. I can tell you that now. The situation in Gaza is very unfortunate because the way they are juxtaposed, the way they are placed vis-a-vis Israel, Israel will have to go back and do what it did before 2006, totally occupy Gaza and demilitarize it. I wish I could see a way out of that conflict. And we might blame Israel. We might say Israel overextended its mighty hand. Israel carpet bombed people. Israel. Hamas is not choosing peace. Hamas is not choosing to work in the context of the political and the global environment to at least safeguard the lives of its own people. Hamas agreed to the agreement, which calls for its demilitarization, disarming. Is that going to happen? Not so fast. And Hamas is acting in an environment where you have somebody like Benjamin Netanyahu, who is one of the most right-wing, hawkish, pro-military presidents or prime ministers of Israel, only making the situation of the Palestinians worse. And maybe our other two lawyers, barristers, will say something more sensible and more palatable than what I'm saying. But the situation in Gaza is very desperate, and for as long as we can foresee in the next 3 years while Trump is in power, Israel is going to have a free hand. We don't like Palestinians to be undergoing that, but I don't see any other option. Let me listen to my wise colleagues to hear something more palatable.
Barrister Fru, this was foreseeable. This was predictable from the onset, especially following your rhetoric during our debates. I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah. But it is very, very easy for us to sit here and blame the Palestinian people. People who have been living under occupation since 1948. They have no state. They have no home they can call their own. They are even landlocked by Israel. Nothing enters without Israel. Nothing goes out without Israel. I cannot imagine. Since 1948, people have been living under the conditions which the the Palestinians are living. Hamas is beheading people now because they are tired of betrayal. They have been put in a position where their whole life, where they lived under the occupation has been flattened. No house is still standing. All the skyscrapers are down. And there were some people who betrayed. I cannot begin to sit here and judge what Hamas is doing, because we have betrayals in the southern Cameroons and there's nothing we can do about it. But Hamas has its own formula. Listen, the 20 or so plans. I agree with Barrister Ghana. It's a fast. It's not going to go anywhere. At least the Israelis have succeeded in getting back their hostages, the ones that are alive. I don't know whether they will ever get all of the bodies back, given the destructive nature of where they are supposed to be. Can you still find all of the bodies? It's another question. But the point I'm making is that Palestinians are still living under occupation since 1948, and they are a people who are in prison for the rest of their life. Palestinians actually leave the West Bank or Gaza and go out and come back without Israel? When we talk about these people, these Palestinian people, we should look at our own situation. We have been living under occupation since 1961, but it has been a nightmare for us. Just begin to imagine that if we were in a situation where we were landlocked and we cannot come out, we have to go through some kind of people, some kind of procedures to get out. We will begin to know how the Palestinians feel. The Israelis have been armed by the West, have been made a military power by the West, and as long as the Palestinian people don't have freedom to have their own state, there will be no peace in that part of the world. That is my take.
Barrister Ambazonia, please.
No, thank you for having me, and thank Barrister Ghana and Sinso for their contribution. You see, when we get to the time, we're just emotional. What is going on in the Middle East, call it Hamas, Gaza, that is not the issue. The issue is not Hamas. The issue is not Gaza. The issue is Palestine. As simple as that.
Yep.
Barrister Ghana will agree with us. What is going on now? Because the Israelis want, if they had their way, they have long since wiped out so-called Palestine. They occupied southern Lebanon for 20 years with the idea of forcing them, whoever supported Palestine in southern Lebanon, they did not give up 20 years after they withdrew their forces. As I said, which is a fact, occupy Gaza, caused the Gazians to live under in tunnels. But literally did they ever imagine that there could come a time during that the occupation that Israelis themselves will live in the tunnels of Gaza, that they will be killed and buried in tunnels, that they are today begging for their corpses and for their remains. And so, blame Gaza, blame Hamas. Hamas, we don't know, was the creation of the Americans under Bill Clinton. There was honorable state. They are the ones who insisted on elections, which Hamas won in the Gaza Strip. Doesn't make any sense to us, Ambazonians. It does. It just reminds us that elections during war is not what you wanted. If the Americans are not insisted on that, there will be no Hamas wherever they are. What it is. What from it. The truth is, whether Israelites like it or not, whether Palestinians like it or not, they are not going to win the war by fighting. Absolutely not. It was military power of since eliminated, but has been going particularly after 67. It has not happened. But what happened in the Middle East, call it Cairo agreement now, whether 20 points, 10 points, 50 points, is what is important. People fight because there's a cause. People go to the negotiation table because they realize that they cannot win an outright victory.
Yeah.
And so, whether it is implemented or not, I think the greatest lesson, to me, the Palestinians have nothing to offer anymore. They have offered their lives. They have been killed in their thousands, if not millions. But Israel are missed. They have not defeated them. Essentially because Israel, officially known, is an apartheid. If the Israelis were prepared to ban the Israelites to every other person, to include Palestine as Israelites, we know where they are. State. If you have to belong to the state of Israel, you must be a Jew. You have to vote to do it that way. That's your own will. We don't have to decide for them. But there is no way they are going to defeat Palestine militarily. Absolutely no way. They would have long since defeated them. They can kill many of them more. They can flatten their
Yeah.
towns because they thought that their original idea was to think that they can drive away whatever was left in Gaza for Palestinians, for the Israelites to occupy. They succeeded. That's just a fact. I see the vote at the United Nations just a few weeks ago, recognizing Palestine, they were recognizing Hamas, they were recognizing the state of Palestine. And so, bottom line again, as compared to our own case, which is what I'm not here to blaming Gaza, blaming Hamas, Palestine, or Israel. No, the lesson we take from it is that when you fight a war, you have a cause you're fighting for. What happens? The stakeholders happen this week have to come together and look for a solution. It will not be the best solution to each of the part, but it's a way for you to survive. Just move on. And so again,
That's
in
amazing.
war,
Yeah.
one in war, mutually hurting circumstances where each of the hurt and feels that it should end. The President says the Israelis are an apartheid people. They will never rest in peace until they find even the bones of their lost brothers. As long as there remain some tunnels in Gaza, they are angry. They want to get them back. But they will never get them back until they sacrifice something. In spite of killing so many Palestinians, the killings do not bring back the bones of those killed Israelites. In tunnels, do not even intend to live under tunnel. But it has been a lesson showing that, look, human beings live in tunnels. They can't say would rather all die than to give in. And it is impossible for you to kill so many millions of Palestinians. It's just impossible. You have to give up something. And again, I know we're coming back to it. If you take what happened in Cairo, and then just tag it on what's happening with Ukraine, there comes a time people fight a war for a reason. And let me give Mr. Trump the credit from your report. Looking for arms. I say, look, let us push for diplomacy. Why? Because it is actually impossible for Ukraine to defeat Russia. Them.
We're going to
They
get
can
into the
so
Ukraine-Russia conflict just in a moment, but I want us to
yes, okay.
reflect on
Okay,
some
let
of
me
the
land,
thoughts that you.
let me then land with let me then end with Palestine. We'll come to that one. And so again, people fight a war for a reason. Mr. Forever. He's an old man like me and you. His party is going to live. The problem will remain, like others before him. And so if the stakeholders have made a 20-point agreement because they intend to make peace, not the best peace in the world, but what they thought can bring the people out of the war situation. Should they accept? To me, I would say they should. And that will apply to Ambazonians. That's why we have been singing conference table, back to root causes, find
Yes,
solutions,
getting
at
to
least
getting to the
credible
implication
witnesses at the
of
table. Over to you.
Barrister Mbisi. Yes, that's why I said we have a lot to talk about just before the
There's
time
there's
begins.
something briefly
Getting
that I
to,
just want to say, Paddy. I want to say something briefly.
make
One
it
thing,
brief so that
one
we can
thing,
make progress.
one thing that is not being said, and I really want our audience to be very honest about this. The Palestinians have been given many chances to get into agreements with the Israelis and live in peace, and they have chosen not to. I'm going to compare it to the situation of South Africa. When Mandela was negotiating out of jail to settle the
Mhm.
situation in South Africa, there was a political party which was just like Hamas in South Africa, the Pan African, no, the Pan African Congress, headed by Chris Hani,
The,
whose slogan was
in Qatar,
"One settler, one bullet." Whose slogan was "One settler, one bullet." Now, if we had adopted that same approach in South Africa, we would never have had a peaceful agreement where power would have transferred to blacks. Because how can you say one settler, one bullet? Means you want to kill all the whites, which they were armed at that time. It would have been a conflict with an untold bloodbath. So in any conflict you have, there is a solution that does not belong to the extremists. In the situation of the Palestinians, the situation lies with the moderate Palestinians and not with the extremists. And Harafat, Yasser Harafat, the chairman of the PLO, had been given many chances, particularly under the Oslo Accord, to sign an agreement that guaranteed self-governance for Palestinians to live side by side in peace with Israel. Harafat was afraid to sign because of Islamic Jihad, which is Hamas. So the Palestinians have been given several choices to make peace, and they didn't take it. Take the case of the Southern Cameroons. Just imagine that we had the opportunity of self-governance of our territory. What would we have used that self-governance to do? Even current day Southern Cameroons, with the limited freedom that we've had, what have we done? People have built farms. PTAs have built schools. Churches have built schools. We have built one of the best educational systems in Cameroon, because we have not just focused on fighting and killing people from East Cameroon, but we focus on building the Southern Cameroon with all the resources that the Palestinians have had from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Oman, from all of those Gulf states. If they had been focused on just improving the lives of Palestinians, that place would be a Garden of Eden. So let's not just
I
blame
think you
the
have,
Israel.
Vice Ghana, I think you have a good point there. But you've said something which Southern Cameroons has not focused even one bit killing people east of the Mongo. We only picked up weapons 8 years ago to defend ourselves from a genocidal onslaught. But I think everything in your narrative is correct. So talking about freedom, our freedom of choice, and the recognition of our homeland, and the fact that our freedom is God given, and we have a duty to defend it.